can be seen less in the FSP 54211. Here we're gonna look at the World Economic Forum. We have a presidential review and we have the governor's review. Here we're gonna look at the governor's review. It's not gonna be more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It's just gonna be a short review highlighting what they were emphasizing or the main points of discussion when they were there. One of the highlights, I'm just gonna highlight what they spoke about was we saw them talk about cryptocurrency and SA South African legislature regulation classifying it under financial asset within the international spectrum. The regulation that has surfaced as a result of cryptocurrency. It was very interesting to hear them talk about that. As our previous videos and recordings, I think the previous recording that we did highlighted the loopholes that we find ourselves in due to the lack of controlling of the innovation of a particular country. We're saying that the lack of control in innovation becomes a problem as we end up finding ourselves where we have loopholes in the system with big things or big initiatives that are very active in the system, like a cryptocurrency. The cryptocurrency was one of the highlights we made. They emphasized that international perspective and the domestic perspective, which was very interesting to hear about that. They emphasized the importance of AI, artificial intelligence on everything that we and the development of financial markets and finance, also the inclusion of artificial intelligence and the growth of artificial intelligence. One of the key things they identified within the artificial intelligence side, saying that the most important things again was when looking at it, there are rather big determinants and factors that we must consider. They went to computing thereof. They went to the algorithmic part thereof, the data, the data that was in inclusion of artificial intelligence in initiatives that are being made. The data, the scarcity of data, and how people who hold data and all that. It was very rather, it was data, data was alone aside. Then it went to the owners of data, the people who own data, and the people who own data, how difficult it becomes getting through that, and that being an important part of building systems or saying artificial intelligence and making sure that in all the initiatives that which we find ourselves trying to better the system or getting ourselves closer. The third important thing that we highlighted there, amongst others, there were a few others. Those we saw very important for us to highlight was the importance and emphasis on tariffs. Saying that whatever initiatives and agreements that which must be made there, they must always be considerate of the tariffs that are applicable there. They must also be considerate of the policies, saying that even that the tariffs that are applicable within multilateral and bilateral agreements or initiatives that would be concluded there, Then we went to internationalization, the importance of internationalization, and then they went to inflation, to the inflationary in your, what do you call this? In your, what is this exchange rate arbitration? In your arbitration language, you would say your inflation your parity or whatsoever. So parity, and but then they went to internationalization and inflation. So the importance that they emphasized in this particular perspective, they said that tariffs policies by new trauma era, your internationalization, your inflation targeting, and all that were very important, and there were key discussion points at which, when they get into the World Economic Forum, they were gonna go and talk about. Again, the last thing they spoke about was the Paris Agreement. After talking about the Paris Agreement, they went to the climate agenda, climate change financing. They emphasized on your COPes that happened. I think even the president on the other side even mentioned the importance of your COPes that were very important in your climate change and agenda and your regulation. And then they also emphasized your climate financing, which is very important. So it was rather a very fruitful and very important approach at which they took, or maybe their inquisitivity on eagerness in getting into those meetings and making sure that they come up with conclusions. That was amongst others. There were other discussion points that were taken, but then these were the ones at which they were emphasized, especially looking at your crypto and your artificial intelligence. When they got into artificial intelligence, they basically, the two things that which they emphasized there was your financial markets and your international trade. So it was international trade and financial markets. Everything that went there was in the emphasis thereof. So when you got into your financial markets and the ease of doing business within the two, when you went to artificial intelligence, you saw them talk about the exact and key things that are very important, like your computing, algorithmic problems, your data, owners of data. That was for artificial intelligence. It was a very fruitful one, that really became an eye opener. Sometimes when you get through these these talks and all that, you at the end of the day learn so much, because you realize where the status quo of the world is, and sometimes you're stuck in your KZN floods as being risks at which they affect. You're stuck in your COVID-19 being one of the key determinants. You're stuck in your March 23s being one of the things that which you always analyze to see the status of the economy. Sometimes you need an international perspective that is actively being taken for you to understand. So hearing them talk about these things, even though you've been working with them, gives you great motivation to actually go through them and rather intensify in whatever that you're doing. Because if you could see this in an arbitration, I mean, for our business where we're sitting, we have our normal insurance perspective, we have arbitration perspective, and we have another leg that is mostly dominated in the financial markets. So for us, it's very applicable and it's very important, because when you go into your AI would be applicable to everything. You go into cryptocurrency and the approach to cryptocurrency, regulation that approach cryptocurrency. It's very important when you go to arbitration. It's also important when you go to payment systems. It's also important when you go to most parts of the business. So it's rather very important that we rather familiarize ourselves with such and always becoming the positive side of everything. Your tariff policies, new internationalization, emissions parity, it's inflation parity. We know that when you get to arbitration, one of the key identifying determinants or methods at which our currency or exchange rates becomes driven on with our inflation parity and our interest rate parity. So hearing them talk about and emphasize the particular direction at which you take it was sort of rather interesting, and gave us a very clear and very important direction at which the world is taking, regardless of the changes that happened by the change in Trump and blah 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 and all that. But it showed South Africa, the USA, I mean, taking I'm not taking a step out of the World Health Organization. Still shows us that we still rather very strong in the prospect. That was the finance sector, which also becomes a very big deal when it gets to the Reserve Bank perspective, or the, what do you call it, Reserve Bankers perspective. So it rather plays a big role in the analysis, because of the analysis of a particular sector rather plays a bigger role when you have to go to a combined approach and a conclusive approach by all sectors. It rather always does give us a very it becomes factored. So, but at the end of the day, the main thing that we're looking at was the finance itself, and the stability of the finance itself. So we are very keen into hearing out. You know, Stats SA soon later issued results with and then soon we'll be hearing out the first annual the first annual. It's not an FSP. It's not a financial stability. It is a blah 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 blah. Yeah, it would be the governor talking. But it's not financial stability. I know usually they have financial stability. This one, it's the one that gives us the status quo of the Reserve Bank. It's those talks. There's also a very beautiful one to hear that they've progressed, and it's very interesting to hear the governor talk. The South Africa, the confidence that he puts in his interest when you talk about these things. One would take this very lightly when it gets to artificial intelligence, the use of data and your ownership of data. It's very important that we familiarize ourselves and make sure that we're very keen, and we are able to play a very active role as an entity. That's how we got actually to arbitration, by starting to realize the importance thereof in time. So yeah, we are interested in the MPC, that's going to be coming very soon. I think it's very soon. The MPC, it's coming after the Stats SA. So we are very to see how do we compare the Stats SA figures and the MPC, and what are they saying, and how is the nation going forward. Not the marginal propensity to consume. I mean the Monetary Policy Committee. Tembisile FSP 54211. Tembisile says indeed is an authorized financial service provider, authorized by the Financial Service Conduct Authority.